Hello. Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to go about this. So anyway, I've suddenly realized, and I don't know why this never occurred to me up until now. Like sometimes I have moments of sheer stupidity like this, but I didn't realize that Kindle Unlimited could be done on browser for some reason. I always thought you needed an app, but apparently now it's a browser thing. Um, and I also just never really thought about it before, but I thought it'd be fun to put up some of these books that I have, these sort of obscure, weird ones, and make fun of them. Obviously, I'm not talking about stuff like Doctor Who but the Batman comics. I mean like this shit and this shit. I do have Dustin and Darling on here, which is Dustin Nuns' Dustin Nuns. I don't know why I said Dustin Nuns'. That's the worst pluralization I think I've ever heard. Dustin Nuns' comic book, but I don't really want to cover that at the moment simply because I kind of want this to be fun, and if I cover that, he is going to flip. So that's not going to put me off entirely, but I'd just rather have a bit of fun with this one. So I thought I'd do The World Rose by Richard Britton, which is so yeah, this is a relatively old one. This is from like 2015, I think. But it caught my eye because Richard Britton is an author who apparently is kind of like a Chris Chan level of crazy. And apparently someone criticised this book, and because they said this book's shit, which it is, and you'll probably see what I mean as we get further in, he decided to buy a train ticket from the south of England, go all the way up to Glasgow, I think it was, or Edinburgh, or that neck of the woods. And yeah, so he went all the way up to the Midlands of Scotland, and then he proceeded to assault this person with a wine bottle. This early 20s woman was just doing her job in a supermarket and was attacked with a wine bottle because she left a negative review on Amazon about a book. And honestly, if I got a negative review on my book on Amazon, I'd be fucking over the moon. But sadly not. But yeah, this fucking dick decided to assault someone for criticism. So I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna review this shit too. Let's do it. So, The World Rose by Richard Britton. Sorry if I'm a bit scatterbrained, it's, I don't know what it is. I was okay until I started streaming, and now I'm, recording, and I'm all over the fucking place now. But that shouldn't be a problem, because this is the kind of book where turning your brain off helps. So, to start with the cover, I think the cover's okay for the most part. Like, obviously he doesn't have the resources or the talent. I mean, it's an Amazon book cover. I'm amazed that he hasn't stolen anything to make this, like so many others have. I think it's okay, this. It could be worse. It's not the best fucking cover I've ever seen, but it's possibly one of the better Amazon Amazon covers that I've ever seen, which isn't saying much, but whatever. The World Rose by Richard Britton. Prologue. I hate prologues. They're fucking stupid. Once upon a time, there was a great forest realm. High on a hill, among the yew trees, stood a castle. Inside it lived a princess, whose name was Elatundra. Oh my god, I feel so sorry for her. Her hair was a golden brown, her eyes blue like the ocean. Wait, her name's Tundra, and they didn't capitalize on the whole ice thing? Like, I don't know, if her name's Tundra, I would have thought that she'd be like an ice queen or something like Elsa, but apparently not. Her smile could melt the hearts of knights. I bet that's inconvenient, fucking killing all of her knights every time they make her remotely happy. And her voice was delicate like a leaf in the wind. A banana leaf, probably. Tundra was in her name, but not her nature, for she was neither cold nor bleak like tundra, but warm and vibrant like a meadow in summer. At 23 winters old, why did they count it from winters when it could be from any other month in the year? Why not just say year? Oh, you're a pretentious twat, that's why. She was world renowned. I mean, she's royalty, she probably would be. Word of her lovingness had spread around the globe to distant lands and far-reaching empires. Ella's dainty feet padded the purple carpet of her bedchamber. I don't know why, they just read with the purple carpet of her bedchamber. Like, it's just purple, like there's nothing else. She drew open a mauve silk curtain and stepped onto a balcony to gaze across a plateau of treetops above which a thin layer of clouds drifted before a crescent moon. The princess leaned over the balustrade, and a cool breeze caused her shoulder-length hair to flow back. Hearing a twig snap in the broken forest below... Sorry, I misread that as snap in the broken below. Hear a twig snap in the forest below, she peered down there. Suddenly, a loud and chilling wolf howl coursed through the crisp air of the hilltop, and Ella jumped back in shock, nearly falling off the balcony. She steps over to the balcony, jumps back in shock, and somehow falls off the balcony. Well, almost falls off the balcony. I don't know how that works, but okay. She fumbled for support of the timber railing and grasped it tightly. Her hair was strewn across her face as she retreated into her room and closed the stained door. Oh, stained glass door. Sorry, I was like, what, did she fucking get messy with a curry whilst eating against her? Ella spun on her toes and her large eyes fell upon a fawn bulldog sitting in a wicker basket. A fawn bulldog? Is that a thing? Is it like half deer or whatever? His presence made her feel safe after that fright, and Ella sighed as she placed hands on hips, staring directly at her canine companion. The bulldog avoided eye contact as he felt a tad unsettled. When the pretty princess locked her gaze on him, thought he enjoyed the attention. Oh, sorry, he enjoyed the attention. Sorry. As she drew nearer, his crackled black nose sniffled and his furry form quivered. I just kind of imagine him, like, rumpling and, like, you know, like when something's morphing and its face goes all... Like that guy from Harry Potter whose face goes all, like, fucking lumpy and weird while he's transforming. Oh, Duncan, when will I meet my true love who holds the key to my heart? I mean, a fucking feral wolf just howled and it scared the shit out of you, and that's the first thing you say. Right, okay. Ella tilted her head, pouting at Duncan, and the bulldog simply pouted back at her. Also, that dialogue is like so fucking cringe. It's the first line and I already want to fucking die of cringe. And I don't even use the word cringe that often, but if I wanted like an example to use, that would be the perfect go-to. Either that or Lance's fucking rapping. It was about the only facial expression he was capable of, with those prominent, drooping jowls. The princess let her pet melt for a bit longer. I'm going to take that literally, just went... before she bent forwards to stroke him, rubbing his ears and scratching him with scarlet fingernails. They were white when she started scratching. The stout dog inclined his head affectionately as his short tail wagged. His eyes welled up and his tongue slid out. He was just beginning to slump on his cushion when suddenly he lurched up and arched his powerful neck. Startled by the abrupt change in behaviour, Ella pulled her hand away. Duncan's floppy ears became rigid and pointed. The flailing tongue that hung out whenever he was relaxed disappeared inside his mouth. Sorry about that. His dark lips curled into an oval, and a black hole formed between. The black hole devoured all life in the universe, thus ending this story. Fangs emerged, and whiskers quivered. The bulldog's whole face contorted into a snarl, and his eyes fixated on the other side of the room. Ella's gaze followed Duncan's, and she screamed when she saw it too. A green and brown toad hopped across the stone floor, and just beyond the edge of the carpet, Duncan's body tensed, and then he bolted for the rude intruder, who frantically scrambled along, propelled forward by its springy hind legs. As the bulldog bounded, he seemed to jump in slow and exaggerated motions, as if to show the terrified toad that he could hop higher. Oh, it's a hop-off now, is it? Fucking sweet. Duncan leapt above his prey, and his paws came down to trap the unfortunate amphibian. But his nails... You mean claws? Well, I'll take his word for it. But his pedicured nails found only the hard surface beneath, and Duncan's face screwed in surprise. Duncan's face screwed in surprise that the toad had vanished. Ella gasped and rushed to see what was happening. The incest mutt turned his attention to... I guess the mutt's a product of incest. Which, given he's a flat-faced bulldog, doesn't surprise me, because that happens a lot in the breeding world. The incest mutt turned his attention to a crack in the adjacent stone wall, through which the little critter must have escaped. I thought it was... Oh, okay. I thought it was a giant toad, but apparently it's just a normal one. Ella leaned down and also noticed the gap between two blocks, but she remained behind her bulldog's broad shoulders, as she was worried that the toad would leap out at any moment. Oh yeah, toads, they're fucking vicious. If a toad fucking gets you, you're done. Duncan furiously clawed at the wall, obsessed with catching the slippery scamp, and seemingly outraged that it had not accepted its fate as his new fuck toy. Part of the princess wanted to tell her dog to stop harassing the poor creature, but her author was a serial harasser, and she was unable to use those words without them basically never being... But her author was a serial harasser, and therefore that would be very hypocritical. She was not so keen on the thought of the slimy thing lurking in her room. It reminded her too much of Richard. It was difficult to make Duncan obey her when he got this excited. It was difficult to make Duncan obey her when he got this excited anyway, so Ella just sighed and watched. For some reason I saw a full stop there and I was like, what? And then it's gone. I don't know if it's my eyes or if I'm just tired or what, but I'm just... Is there a dark mode? Because this is like... Dark mode, please. There's no dark mode, of course there isn't. I'd much... Whatever, I'll deal with it. Duncan relentlessly scratched away with talon-like claws. Oh, they're claws now. They were fingernails before. And jingling was heard as one block shuddered. After a few more swipes, the grey slab dislodged completely. Duncan appeared thrilled that his tenacious work had borne fruit as the rock slid across the floor. The bulldog lowered his head to look into the wall's new chasm, and the princess also peered into the small void. No toad could be seen, but Ella's eyes fell upon a glimmering object, partially concealed by moss. What is that? forgetting about the toad, who must have fled through the further cracks. Does Ella have, like, ADHD? Because she just heard a wolf that scared the shit out of her, that's prowling around her castle grounds, it seems, and there's a fucking vermin in her bedroom. I don't know if toads count as vermin, but whatever. There's a pest in her bedroom, and she's just literally forgotten about it within 2 seconds of seeing something shiny. I swear she's got some super ADHD. She likes Sleeping Beauty, but like a different kind of curse. Duncan strained for his new curio. Oh, Duncan the dog forgot about my bad. I should finish sentences before commenting. That's a completely me thing. I apologise. Paws probed for the shiny thing which had aroused the interest of his mistress. Paws prowsed for the shiny thing which had aroused his mistress, but the boisterous bulldog barked in frustration as his efforts came to nothing. Ella decided to get it herself. However, she did not want to put her hand in there, for fear of finding something unpleasant. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so she took a shoe from under her bed and placed it in the gap to scoop the semen out. The glinting object. I was close. As Ella extracted her blue slipper, the trinket. She's doing the Darren Brown thing where you just, instead to describe objects, you just put the colour that they are. And I think that's why it feels so stilted and weird at times, because like for example, I don't need to establish that my mouse mat is blue. Like, if I was to describe my mouse mat, blue is probably the most underwhelming word I could use to describe it, considering that it's a WWF vintage fucking mouse mat with a built-in calculator, but I'd just say it's blue, and they're descriptive writing at its best. Also, I don't really need to... No, whatever. Like, he never says about, like, if it's what kind of shoe it is, or what function the shoe is, for example, or what style it is. It's just, it's blue. Okay, well, I mean, it's not like the worst possible egregious thing, but it just always kind of gets me on these things when he just does, every single thing is just what colour it is. And it's like, okay, yeah, I could say I reach for my black phone, but it's completely inept and pointless because, like, all phones are black. And even if it's a unique colour for the item, there's going to have to be something a bit more interesting about it than just simply its colour. Like I said, if you describe an object with just its colour, you are just going to basically be skipping over a lot of potential detail that could be interesting. And if it's not interesting, why do we need to know so much about the slipper? If he would have said it's a slipper, I would have sufficed that as fine. I could have literally conjured any image of a slipper in my head. I don't know why I'm hung up on a blue slipper, apologies. As Ella extracted her blue slipper, the trinket glided out beneath. But before she could grab it, Duncan had pounced and seized it in his mouth. He trotted triumphantly to his basket, tail wagging in delight at the prize clinked against his teeth. As the prize clinked between his teeth. Blech. Oh, Duncan, that's metal. Spit it out, Ella demanded. But the bulldog's face scrunched in stubborn refusal as he attempted to chew on the hard item. Spit it out! Ella had a hand in front of Duncan's jaw, which glared at him with an expression masked by guilt. He glanced up at the angry princess and opened his mouth. The glistening object slipped off of his tongue and dropped onto the red cushion. You see what I mean? Like, it could have been a velvet cushion, it could have been a cotton cushion, it could have been a cushion made out of Duncan's mum. That would have been interesting, but no, it's just a red cushion. And like, there's just every single fucking object in this thing is just described by its colour and nothing else. Duncan panted loudly after a most exciting situation. Jesus Christ, if this is excitement to this fucking dog, it needs to be put down as an act of kindness. In an attempt to heal the rift with his mistress, he playfully placed his paw. Oh, he playfully raised his paw, which Ella squeezed. That's not really dog-like behaviour, is it? I would have said that he'd like nuzzle her or sniffed her or offered to, Jessica Yaniva, but was it Jessica Yaniv? There was one woman who fucked a dog and then decided to make a vlog about it, but I can't remember who it was. I swear it was Jessica Yaniv, but I could be horrendously wrong. I remember Hatman did a thing on them, but I'm very sure that it's not Jessica Yaniv, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. Anyway, I'm apologising now for discussing 99% of people and giving Andrew Velasco a raging stiffy. Her brow furrowed as she stared at an elaborate flower-shaped ornament. It was coated in Duncan's semen, so the princess grabbed a cloth and wiped it clean. Ella was looking at a red porcelain rose, with the spiral of gold twisted around its green stem. That's better. That's better. Well done. I know it's like the most important item he's described thus far, but well done. He's actually... If the beautiful ornament had any meaning as her gaze followed the lustrous yellow metal coiling like a snake... Sorry, She wondered if the beautiful ornament had any meaning as her gaze followed the lustrous metal coiling like a snake. Yeah, it's the weird punctuation of that, like, there's none. Like, it needs a comma or two. The golden shaft. That's my new porn star name. The golden shaft extruded beneath the base of the stem, and Ella noticed some jagged teeth running along one side of the extrusion. "Oh, Duncan, you stupid bastard, you bit it too hard," she said. She realised that she was holding a key, the head of which was the flower, and the tip of which was the bottom. What kind of pretentious prick makes a fucking key in the shape of a flower? That's got to be really hard to make a lock for. Like, if it had a flower on the end of the key, I'd at least understand it, but apparently the head of the key is a flower. The princess experienced a moment of exhilaration after determining the object's purpose. She squinted and searched for any letters, symbols, or words which might yield further clues, but found none. Ella ran her fingers along the smooth surface of the artificial rose and looked at Duncan. What on earth is this key for? But the bulldog merely yawned, slumped lazily in his basket, with a sullen frown on his face. Suddenly the door to the bedchambers flung open. A male guard stood in the frame and stammered, "Princess, your father, his..." Ella's eyes widened. She ran past the man, out of her room, and rushed down the spiral staircase so quickly that she almost tumbled. That would have been fucking hilarious if she had. After sprinting across the onyx hall, she pushed open the heavy oaken door. "Father!" The silver-haired monarch lay on his bed, peaceful, pale, and still. He wasn't dead, he was just very fucking anemic. The nursemaid by the dead king's side wept quietly whilst holding his hand. Ella started to laugh. By the way, I have to shout whisper like I'm 14 because my girlfriend's sleeping in the next room and I really don't want to wake her doing this stupid shit. And I also don't want to wake up my neighbours either, because if I was literally to do the IT crowd "Father" thing, I'd probably have like really loud banging on the door whilst being beaten up in my own house. So yeah, I'll pass on that, thanks. So that's the prologue of The World Rose. You can probably see why not many people found much favour in it. But, you know, it's worth giving the prologue a bit of a wide berth because sometimes, you know, things pick up. But you can tell that this person's not like the world's greatest author. You'd probably call them quite amateur. They're probably on par with me as far as shitliness goes. So, I'd say they're a bit worse than me for a couple of reasons. But maybe I'll be able to call them out properly as they come. Sorry. I don't actually hiccup, I sort of go instead. It's weird. Chapter 1. The Fairy Queen. Oh, she's a fairy, Ella? Like, that's the first bit of establishment, is just, oh, she's a fairy. Okay. The death of the Druid King, as they sometimes called him, probably because he was a druid and a king, came more of a shock than a surprise. The elderly monarch had been confined to his bedchamber with illness for weeks. Then why would it be a shock? Aren't shock and surprise basically the same thing? Like, Ella had been by her father's side for much of that time. She wasn't by his side in the end, was she? She was too busy chasing frogs. But she was full of regret that she was not there at the moment of his passing away. She always wanted to whisper into his ear, "I win, Daddy." It had happened suddenly and without warning, but he at least died a peaceful death after his organs liquefied inside him and he had a moment of pure bliss before his heart exploded and he died. The princess mourned intensely, and it was 2 days after the event when she gained sufficient clarity of mind to consider what the situation meant for her. King Elfwode, or Aelfwode, I never know how to pronounce that suffix, Aelf. I assume it's Aelf or Elf, but Aelf I'll go with. King Aelfwode was an immensely popular figure despite his silly name, who had united the various forest realms, had ruled Celtia, or Celtia? Well, has he just called it Celtia? It's just Celts, but okay. For half a century. But now Ella would become queen, and her coronation would occur in a matter of days. The burden of responsibility weighed down on her slender shoulders. Oh, yeah, a little caveat I meant to do at the start of this chapter. Ella is a real person in real life, who is like a insert character that Richard put in the book because he stalkily watched her in, I think it was college. That's the kind of shit we're dealing with. There are a few girls in his books which have like similar origins, and it's all very weird and creepy. So when he says stuff like slender shoulders, yeah, that's probably what he's thinking as he sort of licks his pencil line mustache, staring at. And he doesn't have a pencil line mustache, but I imagine he grows one instantly the second he starts perving on people. The burden of responsibility weighed down on her slender shoulders, but it was a challenge the dainty princess was ready to accept. Her father had been a good teacher, one who educed qualities in people rather than imposing knowledge. Sorry, that is completely me. Let me try again. Her father had been a good teacher, one who had educed qualities in people rather than imposed knowledge. Life experience was more rigid. I don't know what's wrong with me. Life experience was more valuable than rigid scholarship. To create one's own destiny was more important than learning the works of others. I mean, don't you know the old fucking proverb of those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it? I'm gonna forge my destiny by making a giant pact with every nation in the world so that if one nation gets attacked, another one comes to defend it, and another one comes to defend that. I couldn't see that ever ending in a global conflict. I am forging my own destiny. Fucking idiot. Hence, Ella had generally been allowed a degree of freedom. Being a princess gave her a life of relative independence and quietness. But now only more than a few days of that remained. There were some things that Ella knew she would simply be unable to do once she had become the Queen of I don't know why I want to say Solasta, which is an RPG game world, but for some reason, it's the Queen of Keltia. Keltia. I'll say Keltia. One thing in particular she had been planning for a while. An orgy in her throne room. Deep in the woods dwelt a great seer who went by the name of Saxiphalus. That sounds like an STD. That really does sound like an STD. Ella had always wanted... It's an STD given to you by a jazz player. Ella had always wanted to visit him and hear his profound wisdom for herself. I thought you weren't supposed to hear other people's wisdom and you were supposed to forge your own destiny. But the establishment neither approved of such wizardry, nor trusted the old man. Ella was a good girl with rebellious tendencies. Oh, like every fucking Mary Sue. And she was determined to see the seer. It seemed prudent to do so before she had the responsibilities of a monarch, and she also felt in need of some final guidance before assuming ultimate power. Ella knew it was a difficult day's trek to the seer's abode. As she looked out a window, she decided that there was still enough light to begin her quest now. Though dainty, Ella was not the excessively sheltered type of princess. She would often go wandering in the forest nearby, occasionally on her own, but more usually with her dog. She packed a bag with basics required for 2 days and slung it on a sturdy cedar staff. Okay. Ella wore a long evergreen dress over her curved body, brown walking boots on her small feet, and dark silk veil to cover her fair hair. Wait, what colour was the veil? Shit, man. I feel like I'm going in blind now. I'm going to assume it was teal, just completely clashes with the whole outfit. The Princess and the Bulldog, that sounds like a book on its own, descended the tower's spiral staircase and slipped out of the back door. They entered the woods and immediately set a brisk walking pace. Ella had a rough idea of where she needed to go. Knowing what hills to traverse while the position of the sun would inform her of direction. She was unaware of any path which would lead to the seer's abode, but hoped to find one once nearer. Sorry, I can feel like a cough coming on. Across a carpet of foliage and fallen branches, Ella journeyed with her stout, stalwart companion. Wait, what the fuck happened to the frog? I care more about that frog than literally anything else anyone said. Rays of a light shone through the gap in the leaves of trees, and the atmosphere was altogether pleasant. Jaybirds hopped elusively from branch to branch, whilst ravens strutted like black squires along the forest floor. Warblers, tits, finches and doves chirped their unique songs, complementing the steady drill of woodpeckers to form a wondrous symphony of nature. It sounds like some weird Snow White shit, like that's what I get in my head from all this weirdness. The pair saw mushrooms of many kinds, buttercups and shaggy parasols, zoinks! Vivid blues and greens and yellow shells. Oh my god, it's just devolved into fucking colours now. It's like Nikocado avocado feed. It starts off as food and then it just becomes colours in the end, which jutted out of trees and brown fairy rings upon the ground. Some appeared doughy, fresh, and edible, while others were dark, stagnant, and reeked of... Oh, God's sake. Sorry. Some appeared dark, stagnant, and reeked of toxic odour, a bit like this book. Butterflies fluttered, dragonflies flickered through the cool afternoon air, squirrels sprinted up trees. I just kind of have an image in my head now of them like running up a wall, but like as a human. Don't know why. Always maintaining a good distance from Duncan, who knew that they were too fast for him anyway. After half an hour of travelling through such serene woods, the princess and the bulldog descended a slope and came across a sparkling brook. Ella hopped over stepping stones whilst Duncan trotted straight through and splashed water up to his undercarriage. No, Andy, down, boy, down. He paused in the middle of the stream to savour some of the clear, refreshing liquid, his long tongue lapping loudly, whilst Ella sat on a fallen log. A little way up the stream beyond the slender valley they were in, Ella noticed a small bridge, which must mean that there was also a trail. "Come on," she said to Duncan, whose thirst had been quenched. Water dripped from his drooling jowls as he cocked his head before bounding excitedly after the princess. They proceeded along a bank of rough grassland and saw a fairly well-beaten trail on either side of the limestone bridge. Just as they reached it, a bugle-like sound blared from their right. They turned their heads to see a short man blowing what looked like a cattle horn. He wore a loose brown garb with fur boots, and his thick blonde hair was combed to one side. After removing the instrument from his anus, the young fellow flashed a toothy smile and strode confidently towards the pair. The princess stared cautiously with big blue eyes, whilst the bulldog seemed alert and ready to pounce. I kind of want to see a bulldog pounce. That sounds like a funny idea. "Greetings, greetings!" The man nodded twice whilst grinning like a drunkard, his green eyes somewhat glazed and maniacal. "Hello," Ella responded Ella responded simply and continued to study him. I feel like a fucking hiccupy thing coming. The stranger took a dramatic bow. "I am Gullivander, bard of renown." He pulled another instrument from his hip, panpipes, and blew into them, whilst prancing side to side like a nonce. Ella started to grin in bemusement, and Duncan got ready to bite his throat. Gullivander chuckled and exclaimed, "This dog knows not fine music when he hears it." Duncan's tail wagged as he jumped at the bard, ripping open his trachea with his with his browning teeth. Duncan's tail wagged as he jumped at the bard, who stumbled a bit before petting the frisky mutt. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Fucking pet the dog that just tried to attack you. Yeah. Ella smirked. "He doesn't bark like that when I play the flute." "Oh, thou play the flute." Oh my god, they fucking say thou in this shit. It's that old ye olde fucking two worlds speak. "Oh, thou play the flute?" The man's eyes lit up and his lips curled in delight. That sounds gross. "Thou must be a bardess." Why would you have to be a bardess? Because a bard implies that they're like a musician of some description, when really they could just play like casually. I mean, not everyone who plays a guitar, for example, is a fucking professional musician or a professional bard. He stroked the head of the bulldog, who was now licking the curious items hanging from the bard's belt. I hope that's not his dick he's licking. I am no badass, Ella retorted, but a princess. My name is Elatondra. That sounds like a name you should say all at once. Elatondra! She curved her mouth in a practiced slight frown, which created a demeanour of haughty disdain. Gullivander's jaw dropped, and the panpipes fell from his hand, striking the earthen trail. The bard stared at the princess's jugs in silent awe for a few moments. Thou art... No! Surely thou jest! Ella pulled down her dark veil. Don't you usually pull veils upwards? Unless it's one of those... No, never mind. Which made all of her face and hair visible. The man's green eyes scanned the maiden's golden brown tresses and eminently elegant features. He let out a small scream of joy. By the harp of Garrick, you really are the retarded princess. Gullivander fell to his knees and clasped his hands together as though in prayer. One thing that I never get about these stories, I mean, it's not that it doesn't always make sense, because portraits exist and they often mint the king's face on a coin and stuff. But why would most people know what a member of the royal family looks like in medieval times when the royal family live in a specific part of the country and a farmer up in fucking Aberdeen is not going to fucking know what the Queen looks like unless he's lucky enough to ever find a painting of them? So how does everybody know what the fucking King and Queen look like? Do they have to like print off hundreds of like pictures of them and then hand them out to every citizen like in the Doomsday Book and just be like, yo, this is what the new king and queen look like, remember them in case you just randomly run into them one day? He clasped his hands together as though in prayer. He wanted his gods to save him from this stupidity. Sadly they were not so kind. And I thought the odes to your beauty were but ballads of folklore, said the simp. Songs of myth and legend. Yet here I can witness it, for my own eyes. It is crystal clear that you are the most splendorous woman I have ever seen. It's going to sound a bit disingenuous when you never said that before she's basically told you that she's a princess. Like, fucking simp. He looked down at Ella's breasts, trying to see into her top. Ella shrugged. Thanks, but I don't believe that. Gullivander was so humbled and amazed by the presence of the beautiful princess at the small stone bridge in the midst of the woods. The normally confined bard's lips quivered as he stuttered on his words. What brings you, your royal loveliness, here? I am on a journey west to find the seer known as Saxphilius. Saxphilius, the bard murmured, still on his knees. She hadn't lifted up her dress yet, and he was a little confused as to why regular proceedings were not happening. He looked down at the dirt and furrowed his brow. I can help you, he said suddenly, and raised a finger. I know where the old man lives. Ella smiled. Any directions would be wonderful, because I am not entirely sure where I am going. I just decided to wander off into the woods where I could be kidnapped by bandits and possibly held ransom, or killed, or some other horrible thing. I mean, I'm basically the queen, so running off into the woods, completely unprotected, and telling the first drongo that I see that I'm the queen of the fucking country was a brilliant idea. Gullivander paused in thought, with a hand on his chin. Is this at least 8 hours from here? He glanced up at the sky. But there are mere 2 hours of light remaining in the day. What time did she set off? The princess nodded. I know, I don't expect to reach him tonight. We will camp out. The bard suddenly scoffed, his face cloaked in incredulity. Why? Never mind, sorry. I don't know why I'm stumbling over these words. Normally I stumble over smaller words and get the bigger words right, but today it's the opposite. The bard suddenly scoffed, his face cloaked in incredulity. A princess camping out in these woods? He shook his head vigorously. Balderdash! I'll have never heard the like. Why, there is a little tavern but an hour's walk up this trail. It is in the right direction of the wizard, too. I can take you there where you can surely eat, sleep, and probably get raped. Ella tilted her head. Alright, that does sound quite nice. Thank you. The bard stood up in a theatrical manner, and they followed the trail into a pine forest. I would let you stay at mine, of course, but it is a couple of hours back that way, and the crackheads that sleep on the floor might get a little handsy when they've had a bit too much. I very much appreciate your simping. The Coniferous Woods. Sorry, the Coniferous Woods. I misread that as Carnivorous Woods, and a really cool image popped into my head, and then it went, and now it's just boring fucking conifers. The Coniferous Woods were particularly tranquil, and quite different to the deciduous woods which they had walked through previously. Rather than a layer of leaves, the ground was covered by a carpet of fine green moss, which looked lush and comfortable. As they strolled, the bard had much to inquire of the princess. He had heard legends of the Tundra dynasty, and wanted to know which were true, having never met such royalty himself. So Gullivander took tales, sung ballads, and recited poems. Ella reluctantly and begrudgingly obliged the keen performer, educating him with the back of her ring hand. Educating him of the deeds of her forebears, which, while dismissing those stories, which were work of fiction, worryingly, all of the stories where they were heroic and wonderful kind people turned out to be work of fiction, and the only work of truth that he had in his arsenal was the song about genocide, which he always thought was a metaphor or joke. One example was a limerick about Ella's great-grandfather, King Wedgwood, founder of the Tundra dynasty. Old Duke Wedgwood of Tundra... Old Duke Wedgwood of Tundra. He rode into battle like thunder. That is already a really bad fucking lyric, and I'm only halfway through it. But slayed the wrong man, the chief of his clan, and so he became king by a blunder. Ella frowned. No, that's not true. He didn't slay him by accident. He bludgeoned him to death for a bit of a laugh. Oh, no, sorry. He became king because the ruler and his only heir were killed in the battle by him. But the enemy got them, not Wedgewolf. Oh, did he do a Ramsay Bolton? Did he fucking slit his throat and then just turn around to all his men? He was killed by his enemies. Not Wedgwood or any other member of their clan. My great-grandfather helped win the war, and everyone agreed that he had ought to become king. If you don't agree with that, that's slander, and I can take you to court for that, son. If he had slain his own leader, why would they have elected him? You don't elect a king, you fucking idiots. Gullivander nodded. Fair enough, your majesty. He asked the princess no further question, for fear of offending her. The trail twisted around and verged on a low fence surrounding a field. Two donkeys ambled towards the trio, but enough about the princess and the bard. Their heads bobbing up and down in turn as they seeped to prance in a choreographed manner. The animals stopped at the fence and the humans petted their snouts whilst Duncan sniffed at their hooves. For a second I thought Duncan was the bard and had a pretty funny image in my head, and I've just had reality come and ruin it. Ella looked at Gullivander. Say, you're a bard. You must be full of lore. She reached into her bag and pulled out the ornamental key that she had found for days earlier. I I thought it said earlier that day. One thing I noticed is this girl is very blasé about her dad being dead. I know it's been 2 days, but Jesus Christ. Perhaps you might have some idea what the hell this key is for. The bard examined the ornate porcelain rose. Porcelain rose. Why did I fucking say Can someone Photoshop that? Porcelain rose and the gold metal wrapped around its stem. Oh, I've never seen such a key, Your Majesty. But it does look quite marvellous. Sorry, most of my lore pertains to the epic rather than the practical. I would say that the old sage should be able to help, though. Don't worry. Indeed, I was thinking the same. I shall ask him. Where did you find it? At my castle. Hidden within a stone wall. A frog showed it to me. How intriguing! I've never met anyone crazy before. How intriguing! It sounds like a whole new fairy tale waiting to be written. Oh, Richard. Shut the fuck up. Ella smiled. The sun hugged the horizon and set it on fire. This was the most stupid way the world could have ended. But it was, alas, the way that it had to be. The sun hugged the horizon and the last rays of daylight stretched through the trees just as the trio reached their destination. A small, round tower of coarse stone stood by the trail. A wooden placard hung outside, the Roundhouse, which looked more like a farm granary than a tavern. Oh, fucking drive-ins, hotels and dives, here we come. No, hotel hell, why? Fucking Ella, Princess Ella's Hotel Hell. I don't know why I had it confused, but I think it's because those two played back to back at one point on a channel, but I can't quite remember. Also, my head is you can probably tell my brain is completely fucked tonight. I do apologise. Gullivander. I'm fairly certain that his name is just Gulliver and he's just turned it into like... Pulled the striped door open and Ella stepped onto the ceramic floor of the cosy room. The walls were the same stone as the exterior, and the low ceiling was wood. There was only 3 tables. A bit of a shit tavern, really, innit? One long and of dark timber, 2 round ones of light shades, various chairs and stools dotted. I apologise, I hiccuped halfway through. Stop. Oh, fucking... Okay, is there anything else that I want to do before I carry on? Do I want to throw up as well whilst I'm at it? No? Right, shut up then. Various chairs and stools dotted the chamber, and a fire burned on the left. Directly opposite the entrance was a collection of barrels and kegs with boards on top of them which constituted the bar area. In its centre stood a petite young woman with long brown hair parted in the middle. She was less than 5 feet tall. Oh, we've met our first dwarf. And wore a simple beige dress. The barmaid smiled brightly and held her hands together as she watched the guests enter. As Duncan trotted in behind the 2 humans... Ugh. Wait, I thought she was a fairy. I thought fairies were like a different race. As Duncan trotted in behind the 2 humans, his claws made a much audible sound against the hard, sandy tiles. Oh no, his nail polish will get chipped. Sophie, said Gullivander as he walked towards the little barmaid. Greetings, Gally. Sophie, the bard repeated. You will not believe who I have with me here. Sophie tilted her head, observing the evergreen-clad woman. Go on, guess. But Ella did not seem to want to be the subject of Gully's game. Besides, her guess of Doxy probably wouldn't have gone down well. So she walked up to the barmaid and extended her hand. Nice to meet you, Sophie. I'm Ella Tundra. The short woman gasped and pulled a hand over her mouth, glancing at the bard, and then back to the porn star. That'd be funny if that's what her guess was. Are you a porn actress? She glanced at the bard and then back to the princess. She glanced at the bard and then back to the princess. This is what happens when I keep taking my eyes off it. She was not sure how to act in such a situation, how to greet a personage of such esteem, but she was more down to earth than Gully and keen to make the royal maiden feel welcome. Sophie enthusiastically took Ella's hand, clasping it with both of her own. "'Tis the greatest of honours, me lady." The barmaid rushed to a cabinet, bouncing on her feet, and pulled out a bottle. She knocked the entire contents of it back in 3 seconds without drawing a single breath. It was the only way that she could deal with this fucking situation. "Our finest wine." She popped it out. "It used to be vinegar, but it's since turned to wine." "This is on the house, your majesty." "This is on the house, your majesty." Ella smiled, but I need to be consistent with these voices. I don't know what's wrong. Don't be silly. I have money, but thank you." The princess reached into her purse and placed 12 coins on the table. "May we have dinner here too?" Sophie poured some deep red wine into a silver chalice. Oh, so she's not that rich, but she has silver chalices. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I would not serve my guests with silver chalices in a roadside inn, given that people could just walk out with them, and honestly, you probably wouldn't notice. She handed it to Ella. "Of course, your highness." "Why, of course, your highness." She poured more wine into a less fancy mug for Gully. It was the least fancy mug that she had, and it reminded him of his place in the world as her lesser. The two said their thanks, picked up their cups, and sat at the long table in the middle of the room. Sophie quickly set about multitasking as she began to prepare a 3-course meal. Duncan moved over to the fireplace and lay on his side at the edge of the hearth to bask in the warm flames. Sophie, the damsel has no place to stay tonight," Gulliver mentioned. "Sophie, the damsel has no place to stay tonight," Gulliver mentioned. "Then she must stay here with us." "Are you sure?" Ella asked. I do not wish to be much trouble." "Certainly, your majesty. 'Tis the highest privilege. We have a room upstairs you may take, and your dog is welcome to sleep here on the fire." "Thank you very much. This is most lovely of you." "Not at all. Gully, would you like to lodge too?" "Oh no, I'm fine. I'm performing in the village fair tomorrow morning, so I must return to my place tonight." Sophie chopped onions on the wooden board, while Ella sipped at her chalice and relaxed in the homely tavern. The red wine had an exquisitely rich, fruity taste and went straight to her head. Fucking lightweight. She murmured in delight and leaned back in her chair, round eyes glinting as she gazed into the fire. Okay. Stop flipping. This is getting really fucking annoying even to me. I can't even imagine it being for anybody else. The first course was mushroom soup with hazelnut bread. Ella and Gullivander were both hungry and ate it quickly, expressing their approval of the dish. When the bard finished, he took out his lute and started to strum. He played mellifluous melodies. Okay. And sung. I hate it when they use these words that are just so fucking, and sung well-known cheery tunes and whistled ballads. Ella jigged her head to the mellow music, impressed by the breadth of the bard's talents. Does mellifluous mean... never mind. Does mellifluous mean mellow, or... never mind. Then he began to play an airy piece which she had not heard before. They once call her Fairy Queen, for she is delicate as a sprite. Wait, fucking AIDS. I don't know the tune to this, so I'm just gonna make it up as I go. They call her the Fairy Queen, for she's delicate as a sprite. Lucky are those who have seen her smile glowing bright. How seldom there has ever been a person who has given her a slight, and not had their fingernails plucked from their hands. It could use some work. Such a fine and wondrous sight, and she had not primp or preem, for she had always looked a delight. If I was a queen, someone wrote that about me, I would pull their fingernails out of their hands, and then I would fucking have them fucking hoisted up against a wooden pole, put a nail through their tongue, and then take the hoist away, so they're hung by their tongue through a rusty nail, and they can be left dangling there until their tongue rips in half. You can think about what they've done. The blonde bard's fingers lingered on pensive chords as the melody became slower and deeper. To see her ludicrous hair, golden tresses long and fair, to see her blue eyes keen, will keep you from despair. She wore the dress of evergreen, but I'd rather see her without it, for she is like a grove of pine, prickly and very green. I think that last line could use some work. A forest eternal and serene, oh, the most lovely fairy queen. If only you weren't a lesbian. If only you could be mine. Gullivander's locked onto Ella's, and she made a note of it on her list of people to behead the moment she becomes queen list. She was almost out of paper, as she'd used all 36 pages up already. She raised her cup to her lips and took a long sip. The main course arrived. I like how she just sort of blew that off, as a woman after my own heart. A hearty hog and vegetable soup. Wait, that's not a hog, that's Duncan. Shit. Whilst the princess and the bard consumed the wholesome fare, Duncan fed on the bard's remains, who'd had his throat slit by a kindly stranger to pay him back for the song he'd butchered. Duncan fed on a plentiful supply of scrap. Oh, so the food was shit. Okay. He soon fell asleep and snored loudly by the fireplace, only to be outmatched by the princess herself, who snored even louder and awoke him. Only to be awoken by the bard's resumption of music. The dog was not having this, and decided to go for his testicles this time, ripping them off without mercy. The entertainer performed on panpipes, an array of percussion, as well as his lute, seeking to dazzle the pretty princess. Oh, please stop saying pretty princess. Who was of about the same age. Okay. Sophie gave her guests some of the tavern's finest beverage to sample. Exotic wine, rich ale, and sweet mead. I'm pretty sure that this bard character is like a self-insert of Richard because of how he simps on Ella so much because he's a fucking bellend. But Ella had only a small taste of each, as she did not wish to get drunk. Last time she got so pissed that she took a dump in the royal fountain and embarrassed the entire kingdom forever. Sophie had made it for the fair the next day. Wait, what? Oh, for a dessert, a magnificent strawberry tart was laid on the table. Sophie had made it for the fair the next day, but she did not mention that, privately deciding that the princess was worthier of the pudding than the villagers. After all, she was a royalist, and cared far more about the lives of an individual overprivileged brat than that of the hard-working village working class. The little woman cut slices of the large tart, and Sophie screamed Why was the princess doing this to her? Oh, sorry, at the large tart, and served them in bowls with cream. Ella picked up her silver spoon and queried, "So, how exactly do I get to the seer's home tomorrow?" Gully nodded Gully nodded as he swallowed a piece of the delicious dessert. "From here, you must follow the trail of the 4 hours." Sorry, I completely misread. "From here, you must follow the trail of 4 hours until you reach a river, cross over it, and walk upstream for a further 4 hours. Oh my god, why is everything 4 hours away? This place is a geographical oddity. At the end of the valley, you'll reach a forest. You can't miss it. I mean, it is pretty hard to miss a forest. And in the forest does the old sage dwell." Aren't forests typically quite big? Like, that's like me saying, go this way for 10 minutes and then you'll find a city, and in the city there will be a man that you need to see. You could be a bit more specific, you dick. "Would you like me to take you there?" "No, I find you repugnant," Ella said with a grin. "I would risk getting cancelled on Twitter for you," the bard offered, as his youthful green eyes gazed upon the princess. The princess was quick to grab her golden knife from her belt and jam it straight into one of his emeralds to put him in his place. "I will be fine. Your directions sound easy enough, apart from the fact that I have to traverse an entire forest to find one man. Like, that's going to be easy. And I have Duncan for company. So I'm already maxed out on intelligence as far as all potential goes, but thank you very much." Gullivander shrugged. This wasn't the first time a woman had rejected him, and he was very glad that she hadn't thrown paprika in her eyes. He took up his lute and declared that he had one more piece to perform. This one was about being involuntarily celibate and embracing his love for himself as a man. He strummed a light, fluttered tune and started to sing. "How shall I call that pretty young dame, the beautiful maiden who came? Ew. That alluring enchanted flame, who plays on my heart like a game." Dude, she said she's not interested, fuck off. "Yet I cannot give her blame, for to a girl of such fame, are we not all the same?" Oh my, this guy. I hope he dies horribly. I hope he fucking swallows his panpipes and chokes to death whilst playing a hilarious melody of and dies. That would be fucking hilarious. "She is elegant, lovely, lusty, amazing, so Ella must be her name." Someone shoot a fucking crossbow bolt in this man's throat, please. I want to watch him choking it and die. You know, that tongue thing sounded a bit psychotic, but I actually want that to happen to him at this point. He's such a fucking creep. There was a pause in the music. As Gullivander looked into Ella's eyes, she smiled, and then put her veil back over them. And then he played a rich and dreamy theme. Oh my god, he's still fucking going with this shit. Cut his tongue out and his fingers off. And his dick. Let him keep his balls so he'll permanently have the rage but never be able to do anything about it. "Tundra is her last, but she is more like an ass. She is the lily of the valley, she is the rose of the world." Ah, he said it. "She is my garden of paradise." Oh my god, this is fucking cringe. The musician finished with a deft flourish of notes. A bottle was thrown and bounced off his head. Ella drank the last contents of the bottle to hide her shame, and Gully put away his lute before getting up. Ella also stood up. "I royally decree that you are banished from my lands. You are to walk off the nearest beach into the ocean and swim until you find land or until you drown. I care not, but get the fuck out of my sight. I would like to invite you to my coronation in 2 days. There should be an opportunity for you to play and for the rest of the world to realise what a simp you are. The bard gaped at the princess. For the first time he had no words, fucking finally. Wow, I don't know what to say to that. I most gratefully accept your royal loveliness's invitation. See, if I wrote this, I'd write the princess so that she does this, and then when jackass McSimpy incel perv turns up and plays one of them songs, I'd just be like, seize him, and then the guards would just grab him, and then we'd probably just hang him, we'd just flay him like Ramsay Bolton, we'd just get a big wooden X, nail him to it, and then peel his flesh off piece by piece, and just all have a big jolly laugh. And that's why I'm no longer allowed to be a children's author. Ella offered her hand, which Gullivander leaned down and kissed, closing his eyes as he felt his undergarments fill with a liquid of white thickness, and he savoured the moment. He said goodbye to Sophie and Duncan before bowing dramatically to the princess and departed through the striped door. Striped? Okay. The silence brought about the absence for a while. The rambunctious bard was immediately striking. For a while only the gentle roar of the fire and the snores of Duncan could be heard, but Gullivander's musical notes still seemed to linger in the air, popping in and out of the ether. Ella's eyes drooped as fatigue overcome her, and she asked Sophie to take her to a room. She asked Sophie to take her to a room. I skipped a line and I thought it said she asked the princess, and I was like, what? The petite woman led the princess up a narrow staircase and unlocked a cracked wooden door, entering a circular chamber while loose boards creaked underneath. In the middle of the room was a plain double bed with white blankets and a pillow. There was a simple wardrobe to one side and a round window let in some moonlight. Some moonlight, am I right? Sophie lit a candle on the bedside table and beamed. Oh, Christ's sake. Sophie lit a candle on the bedside table and beamed her smile. There you go, your highness. If there's anything else you need, I will most likely be asleep in the basement, so please don't fucking bother me about it. Thank you again. I'll see you in the morning. When Sophie left, Ella collapsed on the bed, drew the wine bottle from under her dress, and began chugging. She seriously had a problem. She pulled the linen blankets over her body and quickly fell into a deep sleep. What is this paging? I'll be honest though, sometimes when you read the Kindle version of books, they do fuck the formatting up quite a bit like this. I've seen it. It happened with my own book actually, so that's... Ella dreamed that night. She found herself in a dark corridor. On her right, the wall was made of stone blocks, but on her left, it consisted of pure earth. Ah, shit, have I been buried alive again? Ella looked up and saw the roots of plants and trees dangling from a soil ceiling, which meant that she was underground, or just in a very elaborately designed house. Her footsteps echoed as she walked down the corridor. A toneless hum came from the black depths behind. It would seem like Gullivander was playing here. It was growing louder and gradually louder. So Ella hurried along. On her right, she saw a rusty door with a large bronze lock in its centre, and the eerie drone drew nearer. Ella tugged on the lock and then remembered that she had a key in her pocket. She pulled out the rose key, grasped the flower head, and plunged the golden tip into the lock. It fit inside, but it would not turn. So Ella persisted, and it clicked. The key rotated and the lock fell to the ground. The princess pushed open the door and was immediately overcome by a haze of spiraling mists. Beyond the fog stood a tall figure in a shining suit of armour. Ella ran towards him, but tripped on the roots of a tree and fell down on her face. That's pretty funny. I wonder if the guy in the suit of armour is Richard. Sir Richard of Simp. But yeah, that's chapter 1 of The World Rose, which I think could be a fun one to read through. So far it's had its moments of what the fuck. I get the feeling though that this is probably going to throw a what the fuck at me, because this was written by a crazy person, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be some weirdness. I already like the simpy bard because of how fucking awful he is and how everyone just sort of acknowledges him but doesn't really, properly gratify him with the bullshit. But to tell the truth, I honestly feel like this comes across as being like a first draft. I feel like this could have been better refined and could have been somewhat passable if it weren't for the fact that it feels so slapdash and kind of crap. But anyway, I'll give it further chance and we'll read further. Hopefully next time I won't be as fucking out of it, because my head's a mess right now. I do apologise, because I have flubbed and it seems to hiccup a lot and yawn for it. I do apologise, but for the now, let us see what this story has next time.
Welche neugierige Paprischen.